Shut up! Get out of our house!
In a fit of rage, my sister-in-law shouted at me, and I lost my patience.
You get out! You're just a freeloader in the kids' room.
I thought for a moment that I had said something terrible, but I didn't regret it. My name is Michael. I'm 30 years old. I have a family of 3, my husband, William, and our 3-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. Since our daughter started attending kindergarten, I started working part-time at a local supermarket. My days are mundane and uninteresting, but I love this ordinary everyday life. However, I have had a problem for about half a year.
Hey!
Michael! This is for going out. It's expensive, so wash it carefully. Saying that, she showed me the clothes with a few wrinkles and spoke to me with a dissatisfied face. She's William's older sister and my sister-in-law. Her name is Mary. She has been living with us for the past half a year. She's unmarried, single, and I believe she's 40 years old. Is that so? If it's expensive, please don't put it in the laundry basket as usual. No. This is a brand name item. Even if you like no brand items, isn't it too ignorant? Saying that, with an exasperated look, she went back to her room. It was always like this. For my sister-in-law, it was natural for me to take care of her personal affairs, and I was treated like a convenient housemaid. Even this time, even though I did it for her, it really pisses me off. Not only that, but I also somehow ended up making my sister-in-law's breakfast and lunch. You're making Elizabeth's lunch, aren't you? Then, could you make mine as well? Thinking no, please make your own. Of course, I declined. But she said, no, I don't want to. I've never done it, and Mom always did it for me. That's what she said. At first, I brushed it off and said I didn't know. Of course, I didn't make her lunch. Then, my sister-in-law took the lunch that I had made early in the morning for my daughter and took it to work without asking. I was naturally angry about this. This is obviously Elizabeth's, isn't it? This morning, Elizabeth was making a fuss because she didn't have her lunch. It was a big deal, you know. I was red in the face and furious, but she said, oh, I thought you made it for me. There was one on the desk too, sorry. She stuck out her tongue and apologized. I was so dumbfounded that I couldn't help but be amazed. I've told her to buy something at a convenience store, but she replied that she doesn't want to because the nutrition would be unbalanced, which didn't make any sense. As a prank, I've tried making her lunch filled with frozen food, but she didn't mind at all. It was obvious that she was just using the excuse of unbalanced nutrition because she wanted to take it easy. We started living in this in-law's house about half a year ago, and my sister-in-law has been like this the whole time. Since we moved here, I've been doing the housework while feeling constantly irritated. I'm sorry, Michael. Then, my mother-in-law, who was walking with a cane, spoke to me. She lost her husband, my father-in-law, about 10 years ago, and has been working as a company employee without retiring ever since. She has always had slightly high blood pressure, and last year, she finally collapsed due to a stroke caused by overwork. Fortunately, her life was saved, but the right side of her body was left paralyzed as a result. She can walk if she uses a cane or wears a device on her foot, but continuing to work is naturally difficult. So, she retired from the company she had worked for many years and is now living on her pension. Thanks to you, Michael, I can take it easy a lot. Thank you very much. Mary is the same as ever. I'll talk to her later. Whenever my sister-in-law and I got into a fight, my mother-in-law always apologized to me in this way.
You need to get a grip. Get out already.
She would often tell her selfish daughter. But my sister-in-law never took her seriously. My mother-in-law was kind and always thanked me. My daughter, Elizabeth, is also very attached to her. When I first heard that my mother-in-law had collapsed, I never dreamed that things would end up like this. I thought I would just pop in from time to time and help out with the housework. But William thought differently. One day, William came home from work and abruptly proposed that we move in with his parents. When I expressed my confusion at his sudden suggestion, he even mentioned that he had already spoken to the real estate agent about canceling our current lease. In this way, things progressed in a rather haphazard manner, and we started living in his parents' house almost involuntarily. On the day we moved in, my mother-in-law had a complex expression on her face. I can live normally, you know? You probably didn't like this sudden idea, did you, Michael? She said with an indescribable look on her face. Upon hearing those words, I realized that William had forcefully decided to live together, and my mother-in-law had been swept along. Having sensed this, I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. However, despite the initial complexity, my mother-in-law and I, through numerous conversations, started to get along. Perhaps because my mother-in-law was often engaged in housework, we found joy in sharing stories of our struggles. It's like rehabilitation, she would say, and take the initiative in house chores like cooking dinner and cleaning. My parents lived far away in the countryside, and there were moments when I deeply missed them. Selfish William and my sister-in-law remained a constant source of worry. But I was beginning to think that life in my in-laws' home might not be so bad after all. I could never have imagined what would happen next. Hey, now that we're living at my parents' house, increase my allowance. One day, William blurted this out. I didn't understand what he meant by these words. Huh? What do you mean? I don't quite understand. When I expressed my confusion, William, with a foolish look on his face, responded, If we're living here, we don't have to pay for rent or utilities, right? So, I want that money for my allowance. That's what he said. Furthermore, William claimed it was unfair that despite my part-time job contributing to a higher household income, his allowance remained unchanged. And then, we're back at my parents' house, everything is practically free, he exclaimed. Was it my lack of understanding, or William's lack of imagination? I just couldn't grasp what this man was saying. If I had to say, I was confident that the problem lay in William's lack of money management skills. Listen, yes, this is your mother's house, but since we are living here, we are naturally covering the majority of living expenses. Moreover, the rest is being saved for Elizabeth. That's what parents are supposed to do. Sure, our expenses had decreased slightly compared to before, but that money was being saved bit by bit for our daughter, Elizabeth. Moreover, William doesn't go to drinking parties, and he spends his holidays just playing video games at home. I thought, does he need an allowance? But I was giving him just enough not to feel restricted. However, when my husband found out that our household was bearing the cost of living, he grumbled,
Huh, what's that? That's strange.
and walked off to my mother-in-law's room. Stunned by William's lack of common sense, I was preparing for kindergarten the next day. When I heard a loud argument from my mother-in-law's room, I rushed into the room.
Why? Why are we contributing to the living expenses? This is your house, Mom. There's no need for us to pay.
There William was yelling with a red face. When I looked at my mother-in-law, she was staring blankly at William, not saying anything back. It was the face of someone who had given up saying anything. I couldn't bear to watch. But then William noticed me.
Don't worry. We don't need to pay living expenses anymore.
I wanted to punch the smug face of William as he walked away. I cursed my lack of judgment in men. Not wanting to be associated with such a man, I desperately tried to explain myself to my mother-in-law. However, my mother-in-law gently smiled as if she understood everything. She said, "Michael, would you like to have some tea?" And so, I came to hear an incredible story from my mother-in-law. A few days later, my mother-in-law and I were preparing dinner with our daughter Elizabeth. That day, we were making Elizabeth's favorite hamburger steak. Elizabeth was helping out, shaping the hamburger mixture in her own way. Like this, like this. I can't wait to try Elizabeth's hamburger. However, Elizabeth quickly got bored and started playing with her toys at the table. Then, my mother-in-law's smartphone on the table rang. The name displayed on the screen was William, who was supposed to be out shopping. "Oh, I wonder what's up," my mother-in-law said. "It's probably him not knowing what to buy." My mother-in-law had urged William, who slacks off just because it's a day off, and my sister-in-law to do the shopping. With hands full of minced meat, I couldn't possibly touch her phone, and while I was wondering what to do, saying, "Elizabeth will do it," Elizabeth, on her own accord, ended up pressing the call button. Moreover, it seemed to be on speaker mode.
Oh. Hello?
"Mom?
Hello?
Damn it! Answer properly." When I peeked at Mother, she was just silently staring at her phone. Just as I was about to speak to my husband on the phone, "William, did Mom answer the phone?" I heard my sister-in-law's voice. "No, it connected, but she's not replying. Maybe Elizabeth did something?" As William said that, my sister-in-law began to speak about something outrageous. "But you know." My mother-in-law and I listened to the conversation, our faces turning pale. In such a fluster that I didn't even care about my sticky hands, I hurriedly pressed the record button. The call ended after William and the others had finished their conversation. I quickly washed my hands, and then I made a call to a certain place. "Where are you right now?" "I'm home." After a while, carefree William and my sister-in-law returned. "We're back. What's with you two?" It's no surprise that they were shocked. Because Mother and I, with stern faces, were staring at them from the living room table. Hey, what's with the scary faces? Both of you, my sister-in-law asked with a forced smile. Sit down. There's something we need to confirm with you too. Right, Michael? When I nodded slightly, I played back the conversation that I had recorded earlier. But, it seems like we can't get Mom's money unless she dies, right? It's like making small talk. My sister-in-law spoke casually to William. Is that how it is? What the hell, sis? Because you told me you'd found the inheritance, I rushed to move. Even though he has dragged the family into his selfish circumstances, William didn't seem to show any signs of regret. But Mom is sneaky, isn't she? It's all Dad's inheritance. We never had a share to begin with. In essence, these siblings had moved in for the inheritance and were eagerly waiting for their own mother to die. Isn't it irritating when she walks slowly? When she slowly descends the stairs, I think about giving her a little push. Oh, if we make it look like an accident, we might get the inheritance. My sister-in-law could casually say such terrifying things. When I heard this, my mouth was agape with shock. But even William said, I know. That's a brilliant idea. Perhaps they did not think they were being heard. The two on the phone kept chatting away. Listening to this conversation, I imagined that my mother-in-law might be killed for her inheritance. I immediately contacted the police, but the evidence was too weak to establish a case for attempted murder, and they were of little help, saying it's a family matter. Then, my mother-in-law made a decision. After hanging up the phone, she took a long sigh and looked at her children. I understand your thoughts very well. I don't even want to consider you two my children anymore. I've decided to sell this house and move. Upon hearing this, the two of them wore expressions of incomprehension. Actually, on the day William went wild, I had received a consultation from my mother-in-law. Most importantly, it was about my sister-in-law. Apparently, since she started working, she has not given a single yen to her parents' home. On top of that, she had the audacity to live off her parents, doing as she pleased without any restraint. I can do whatever I want with my money, right? She said, and it seems that she spends most of the money she earns on luxury goods, travel, and other hobbies. If you have money to spend on hobbies, leave the house now. Or at least contribute some living expenses to the house. When my father-in-law was alive, my sister-in-law was also scolded like this. Even when she was told this, she didn't put money into the household. After my father-in-law passed away, my sister-in-law completely disregarded my mother-in-law, doing whatever she pleased. But Dad said so. Save money instead of contributing to living expenses. Just help around the house. My sister-in-law protested that she wasn't in the wrong. Perhaps my father-in-law had given up on my sister-in-law. However, I've never seen her help around the house once in half a year. Yes, he wanted you to save money and leave the house. I thought we had finally finished raising our children. You're treating us like convenient servants. You must be quite rich. Perhaps unable to find a retort, my sister-in-law made a frustrated face. It's a problem if we suddenly have to move. Where will we go? Why would she say such a thing in this conversation? My mother-in-law laughed at my sister-in-law, Would anyone live with someone who's trying to kill them? Please feel free to live as you wish. Having been firmly rejected, the two of them finally realized my mother-in-law was serious, and they began to panic. So, what happened to the inheritance? Mom, you're tricking us about our share of the inheritance, aren't you? I might just tell the police. My sister-in-law said such things. Probably when my mother-in-law fell ill, she went through her room on her own. I wonder why they thought they could receive the inheritance. To my sister-in-law's smug face, my mother-in-law calmly said, "That's my savings. Your father had nothing to do with it. You guys keep talking about inheritance. There's no way we could save while struggling to pay living expenses." When I heard that William had also been living off his parents until he got married, I was taken aback. Well, thinking about it, William often said things that showed a lack of life skills. He didn't know the meaning of security deposit and key money, and he didn't even know the market price for fire insurance and living expenses. I regret marrying such a man. At that time, due to our conversation, Elizabeth, who had been napping in the next room, woke up. With a sleepy face, she looked at William and my sister-in-law. "If Papa did something bad, you have to say you're sorry, right?" She said that. Despite the serious atmosphere, I couldn't help but burst out laughing.
What is it? You've been filling their heads with nonsense.
My sister-in-law said to me, angrily. Thinking what a conveniently forgetful head she had, although my mother-in-law tried to stop me, I decided to vent my pent-up anger as it was a good opportunity. "So, it's my fault this time? You really are an idiot, aren't you, LOL? Don't you understand what you've done?" I spat it out with a voice cold from the bottom of my heart. Besides, isn't it strange? To be lectured by a 4-year-old child, don't you think Elizabeth behaves more maturely than you do? Everyday stress made my speech smooth. Not doing household chores, not contributing financially to the house. Aren't you just a parasite, LOL? And yet you complain all the time. If you're so unhappy, why don't you just leave? As I spoke matter-of-factly, my sister-in-law finally seemed unable to hold back her anger.
If you have complaints, you and your brat should leave,
she spat out. At this, even I was angered. That's your retort? You can't do anything yourself, you're just a parasitic old maid living in her childhood room. I shouted until my throat felt like it would tear, but I felt a lot better having spoken my mind. Everyone around us, seeing me this angry for the first time, was stunned. Whether she was overpowered by my spirit, or shocked to be called an old maid living in her childhood room, my sister-in-law fell silent. A few days later, the day for my mother-in-law to leave the house came. "Well then, I've already put this place up for sale. Please leave by the end of the month." Saying that, she left without telling us where she was going. Even I don't know where my mother-in-law went. She probably wants to live in peace. William and my sister-in-law were left behind. I can't believe it's come to this. We have to find a house for the 4 of us to live in now. William's statement, devoid of a sense of crisis, made me realize once again that he is really clueless about the world. If it's just the 2 of you, wouldn't a 2 LDK be enough? I mocked them. At my words, William, 2 people? Your math is wrong, he and my sister-in-law laughed. Despite all that had transpired, William still thinks he can live with us. Elizabeth, shall we go with Mommy too? As I said that,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing Mommy's grandpa and grandma, she replied with a smile. Finally realizing that things were not looking good, William started to panic.
Huh?
What are you talking about? It was just too ridiculous. I confronted my foolish husband with the truth. I am going to divorce you. Even without your consent, it's fine. I've prepared to hire a lawyer. And besides, someday you might kill me for the insurance money when you're in need. At my words, William got into a panic. It's obviously a joke. Right?
Sis.
My sister-in-law, who can't even take care of herself, seems to be in trouble without a housemaid.
That's right.
I wouldn't do such a thing. Let's live happily together, okay? She said something like that. To that, I said, you're glad that the annoying me and the kid are gone, right? Oh, but the house is gone too. Probably, at that moment, I had the biggest smile of the day. Whether he hasn't learned his lesson or he's shameless, he said he would follow me to my parents' house, so I told him I wouldn't want to introduce such an embarrassing man to my family. Can you care for someone else's parents when you've neglected your own mother? That's impossible for you. I told him that. A taxi we had called came, so my daughter and I got in. I'm happy for you. Please continue to enjoy your life freely from now on, I said with a smile as we left the in-laws' house. Behind me,
Wait. Don't go.
I'm sorry. I apologize. There was the figure of my pitiful ex-husband, throwing a tantrum like a child. I used to like his childishness, but now I could only think of it as disgusting. As for what happened to those two afterwards, I heard from a mom friend who worked at the same place as my sister-in-law. Since it's about those two, as expected, they had no savings. So, they seemed to have rented a room with no key money or deposit for the time being. However, lacking life skills and trying to live the same way as before, they naturally seemed to be struggling with life. It serves them right. They should appreciate what they had with me. Upon returning to my parents' home, with their help, I'm living peacefully with my daughter, Elizabeth. My ex-husband did nothing father-like. He just played games all the time. Perhaps because of that, so far, Elizabeth doesn't seem to miss him or cry. Having my ex-husband and his sister as bad examples. Don't ever become adults like them has become my catchphrase. Whenever she hears that, Elizabeth always smiles and nods. In her new kindergarten, she seems to have made new friends and is attending with a smile. This matter has made me decide to value my family more and to spend this time together.